Good morning, everyone, because it's morning in Australia. I'm very glad to see you all here. I hope my sound is okay and your sound and video is okay too. And I would like, for those who are joining us for the first time or even the second time, very briefly, if you can do it faster than in 1 minute, that's best. Introduce yourself. Just name yourself, say where you're from, and what's your experience with Mind Mirror. Would you say you're a completely new user or you already had some experience? Thank you. Whoever wants to start, anyway. Just take the word, make sure your mic is on.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Sheets. I have some experience with the Mind Mirror.
I'm Phyllis. I have some experience too.
We're in Riverside, California.
Oh, and may I say that they're also professional neurofeedback therapists and acupuncturists? Do I remember that correctly?
Correct.
Right. So they have lots of experience with mind-body stuff in general. Hello, wonderful. It's great to see you too.
Okay. Who would like to be next?
Hi, I'm Peter. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Peter.
Peter Staples, yes. Loads of experience with Mind Mirror, but not the kit you're using. I've never even seen one. So I was hoping to pick up how that works.
Okay,
Judith came over in April. I'm in Bath in England. So it's 7 o'clock in the evening here.
Okay, wonderful.
And may I add about Peter, so that you'll really know who he is that he was a very early student of Max Cade's and participated in the classes and the development of the awakened mind, and has been with Isabel Cade for many years. And boy, we can't wait. Peter is checking us out to see how we're doing this, and we're hoping to have him be an expert on an upcoming seminar talking about Mind Mirror and temperature or Mind Mirror and the early days, or whatever he's willing to talk about.
I was hoping with the temperature we could do it a bit hands-on, so perhaps if everyone who was registered was sent at least a finger temperature beforehand, because it's always much better if you can actually do it rather than just talk about it.
Great idea. Yeah, we'll manage to make that happen somehow. So welcome, Peter. It's great to have you on board.
Oh, by the way, with the camera thing, it's a new machine, and I thought it might need a particular type of camera in order to run this. So rather than just getting one, I thought I'll just wait and see. You might need one where you can vary the direction remotely or something like that.
Well, I just wiggle mine around from the top of my computer to send it. There's our hookup stuff. Anywhere you want. Mine just sits loosely up on the top, hooks over the top of the monitor. Cheap, works great.
Brilliant. I shall get one.
All right.
Okay. Let's move on, because it's precious online time. I don't like to keep people waiting.
David. Hi, I'm Deborah Flack in Canada, and I'm new to the Mind Mirror, just getting started.
Okay, thank you. Deborah?
I'm David. I'm in sunny Connecticut, USA, where it's about 16 degrees out. And I'm new to the Mind Mirror as well, although I have done neurofeedback in the past.
Okay,
excellent.
Good. Thank you, David. And we know Craig already, but his microphone is off. Yes, Craig, say a couple of words.
So Craig Walker here in Cameron Park, California. New to the Mind Mirror. Quick question for Peter Staples, since he's in Bath. Do you know Emily McGuire? She's a singer-songwriter that lives there.
Afraid not. Sorry.
You can discuss this in private chat if you like. If you look at the bottom of the screen, there we have the Zoom menu. And I mean, you can see there, you have microphone icon. That's where you can mute yourself, or I will mute you if you're creating trouble. And there is video button where you can stop video. And there is also chat button somewhere to the right if you move. So there you could send private and public group messages so that everyone or a single person can see. So Craig, if you don't want to disturb others and take our time, you can write a little chat message. Okay, so today's topic is simple. It's introduction to the mind mirror, and we will take you through the menu, software configuration, electrode placement, and talk more about the self-training program. So once again, if I see that you are disturbing the speaker, I will put you on mute, and I have this right as a moderator. So let's get started, Judith. I'm ready. I hope everyone.
Thank you. But we also want to have it wide open for questions, because, you know, if I'm going too fast or something like that, or I'm not completely clear, people can feel free to break in and ask questions. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen right now. It's letting me go to the Ballistas program. And so I'm going to start with a clear desktop. And just say that the assumption here is that you have already got your Bluetooth connected, and you've got your mind mirror instrument, meaning that you've downloaded your software, and this is in black, where it says the Mind Mirror 6 and gives the Mind Mirror group feedback and the Lesh scale as options. So I'm one of those people who can look at an icon 200 times and not really notice it. And it was the same for me with the Ballistas software until I finally realized just how incredibly intuitive it is. So I'm going to present it to you as if you were a person who didn't necessarily see things to begin with. The menu across the top says File. Okay, so here you're going to find everything that you would normally find if you had a file folder of papers and documents that you store for future view. So what you'll find here is all of the buttons that are also across the bottom of the window, and two things that we use a lot. One is open existing session. That would be like a file folder where all of your sessions are stored, the people's names, the clients, and then the other thing that we use a lot is load screen set. So the main way that we use this is to scroll down. And if you are a mind mirror practitioner, meaning that you also have a GSR and blood volume pulse meter, then this would be your setup screen, a default screen. And if you're a self-trainer and you do not have the GSR and the BVP, then that's a default screen for you. We've already stored these in just to make it easy. So you can always single click and then click on open, but it's just a little bit less trouble to just double click. And then up comes everything that you're going to use, not including that counter. I want to play with this screen a little bit because we're going to have somebody come in and for a demo hookup. And I want to show you that you're not confined to what's on here. For example, you could take this channel 2 stoplight and move it over here. And add other instrument windows to it. What we have here is the galvanic skin response, skin conductance, stored in for application of the little GSR meter on 2 fingers, typically the index finger and the middle finger. That also gives us what's called the Lesh scale. In fact, I'll just load a session in here so you can see that operating. Open existing session. I've anonymized the clients, but I think I'm here. And here's my old House of Doors session. I'm going to tell it to, I had this set for 8 EEG sensors for a 4-person hookup, but it's saying, do you want to use the proposed hookup? And I'll say, yeah, update it to what I'm proposing. So I'll just, I have to keep moving all of our pictures. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. So I put this in here, and I'm going to go over all of the keystroke commands with you in a moment, but right now I just wanted to show you the Lesch scale. So the Lesch state, it changes from the title, galvanic skin response, to Lesch state, and that's a measurement that's really important to us because it's the correlation of the EEG with the used to be the electrical skin response meter. Now that's been calibrated into the galvanic skin response meter. So these are two very important physiological measurements for those people who have GSRs. The other one with the practitioner's kit is the blood volume pulse meter, and I've set it up to read pulse rate because raw data just gives us a nice wave and that doesn't really tell us anything. But if the pulse rate picks up during a session or it decreases a lot during a session, then that's going to give us some very important information. Of course, this is the mind mirror display. These are stoplights. Channels 2 is the left brain, and you can see it says the mind mirror left channel 2. So that says channel 2. Right channel 6. So that's the right hemisphere. Those are the, as you'll see during the hookup, the electrodes that are striped so that you can know that they go for the right brain. So I said that we can add lots of other instruments. The ones that we really like to add a lot under instruments is the spectrogram. If we want one, say, for the left brain, channel 2, and you can see it says sensor 2 EEG, all of the instruments we've updated. You saw update sensors, and that's what we did. So we can take a spectrogram, it's really useful. And if we want to add one for the right brain, under instruments again, spectrogram, this time we tell it sensor 6 EEG. These nice resizable windows make a lot possible for us because we can put more and more instruments on the screen. I won't, continue with this because really I want to give you a overview of all of the menus. This is a little bit of a divergence, but an important one. I could fill this thing up with screens, but I'll just show you another one that is one we use a lot. So the mind mirror is under instruments. The spectrogram is under instruments. A title, that's really useful. Numerical display, but everything else is under time series. So you go sensor 2 EEG. The other one here that I like to use is SEMG artifact amplitude, and I'll explain to you in a minute what that is and its relationship to the mind mirror display. So you could go ahead and put one in for the left brain, the right brain as well. This is for the left. See, it says EEG2. So I included this, stored this session, this House of Doors session, under File and Open Existing Session. For you, it's going to be stored under Test User, which is this one here, because it's a great example of what not to do in a mind mirror session. And in fact, I recorded this. When I loaded it, it gave us this title up here at the top. I actually stored it. It's been restored, but I originally recorded it in 2013 and was just really learning how to do the mind mirror. And so what you're going to see as I hit this resume button, which is a replay button, is why we care about the spectrogram and the SEMG artifact, and how it relates also to this SEMG bar. Now, the SEMG bar measures muscle tension in the head, neck, and shoulders. It was in the original mind mirror because without it, we don't know what's artifact and what's real brain waves. And the Velistis Mind Mirror 6 SEMG artifact is measured at 75 to 100 hertz. So if you have it, this kind of tension, it will bleed on down and flow on down into our 54 to 64 hertz bar of gamma, which is showing here at 59. So I was moving around at the beginning of this session, and you can see that the SEMG artifact is high at times, and we don't want it above 5. It's not too bad right now. It's showing out that it's 4.40. But when it goes above this, I don't want to confuse you with too many things at one time. I can actually display the settings with a right click and tell it I only want to see 0 to 5. I do not want it on auto scale. I want the scale to change. So now you can see the SEMG a little bit better in here. But that reading is going to be the same reading as this one. The other reason that it's important sometimes to add other windows is the spectrogram, and I can size it up for you a bit here. The spectrogram shows activity that we don't want. Well, it's like this was the original mind mirror too, it was then called a histograph, so that you are, for example, looking at this data right here, but it's also showing you a history of the data that came before that. Its main value, if you're a practitioner, you can see a few seconds earlier that somebody maybe had a lot of alpha and then they've lost their alpha, and then you can, you know, because you're looking real time in the mind mirror, you can see what happened just before. But the secondary use of this is that it's showing a solid line up here at 60 hertz, and we don't want any activity at 60 hertz. I actually had a signal quality issue here. A loose electrode, or maybe my cell phone was sitting too close by, and you can see that the same thing is happening in this spectrogram. So these are really nice things to add onto the default mind mirror practitioner setup, or even the self-training setup if you like. Another thing to add is that I look at this and I see that the SEMG stoplight, as shown here, is on green because it's below 5 microvolts. When it gets above 5 microvolts here and here, then it's going to go yellow or red, and then that tells us those brain waves are no good. The 60 hertz, it hasn't gone to yellow or red, although technically it should have. If it got much higher than this in amplitude, you start seeing that there was trouble. Another reason to use the spectrogram. The spectrogram is going to tell you with a blue line if there's a little bit of trouble, with a yellow line if there's a lot of amplitude. And in fact, in a spectrogram, you can see that the highest amplitude here is around, we can adjust it. My high CPU usage is affecting the meeting. Did you see that signal, Oksana? And in fact, it's not letting me go into my spectrogram. Okay. You can actually adjust this, but the main thing is we see the most of the yellow in the spectrogram right where it's supposed to be. And that is in, excuse me, the highest amplitude of the alpha range. So I just adjusted this window by simply left-clicking on the mind mirror display, and I can adjust the attenuation to anything we wanted. The up arrow takes us to 17 microvolts. Tap the up arrow again, 20, and on out. But as we go and increase the attenuation, what we see is that the brainwave pattern collapses, right? So if you left-click on the mind mirror and press the down arrow, then the attenuation increases. Right now, I want to keep the attenuation at 20 because we're watching gamma, which is why this yellow heavy line in the spectrogram, highest amplitude brain waves are going to be in the yellow. But in a session, I would probably want to look a little closer at what's going on with theta And I already know what the alpha is doing, so I might actually drop down to, say, 12 microvolts. Probably not any more than that, because I can see most of the pattern, except for this big alpha right here. So we're at the 5-minute point in this session, and now all the SEMG has settled down. You saw it earlier when I was moving around, everything was red. The signal quality lights were flickering. Now I get a ways into the session and I'm quieter and I'm still, and now everything is green like it's supposed to be. So when we hook up, the main thing we want to see is green lights, and we don't want to see any 60 hertz, or if you're in Europe, 50 hertz activity in the spectrogram. I'm very relaxed physically here. The GSR is showing the lowest value that it can, which is 60 hertz. I'm 6.0 on the left scale. I've got kind of a high heart rate. I'm going to left click on here and then hit the right arrow. See those white lines collapse? I hit the right arrow again, slows down the data line still more. And that's the main stuff really that you're going to want to have on a screen set. If you are wanting to monitor, say, gamma amplitude, well, in that case, you could just go to Instruments, again, Time Series, and look up gamma amplitude. Or if you are wanting to monitor, say, my favorite window, which is dominant frequency, it's probably no good in recording. Let's say maybe you would want to monitor alpha amplitude. But in reality, all of the amplitude screens are not so much use during recording because typically your eyes are going to be closed, right? So these windows that I've shown you are just the ones you want to check before you close your eyes to go into meditation. If you want to save the window that you set up, then you just go to File, Save Screen Set. I'm going to type it, let's see, Mind Mirror Practitioner Setup, and I'll just say with spectrogram and SEMG. So then I have a new screen set. A very neat thing that I want to show you while I'm thinking about it is that if you want to save your screen, use your screen set over and over again, and you don't want to go under File and Load Screen Set to get it, you can just press Exit. Has the screen sharing stopped?
Yes, Judith. Yes, it did.
I don't know why it did.
Go down. In the bottom of the screen, there is menu.
Yeah, I think it's back on by now.
Yes.
Okay, and so you can see it reopened with all the same things on it. So in reality, the only thing we use in the file is Open Existing Session to get your sessions back up, to replay a session, and Load Screen Set to get any new screen set you want, and then Save Screen Set to do what you just saw me do, and that is to overwrite an existing screen set with a new name. Everything else on here, we never want to fool around with Load Channel Set or Save Channel Set unless Steve Clark is doing something with us. Ambulatory data import doesn't apply to us. None of these things do. The only thing, Open Existing Session, Load Screen Set, Save Screen Set. And that's partly because all of our control buttons are down here. You just saw us use Exit. Record starts the session. And then if we load a session, We'll open, here's a different one. We want to keep the current settings, they're the same. And then once that session loads, then we go back to play. Since we're looking at the session right now, I just want to show you some of the keystroke commands as well as the right arrow. So we already said you left click on the mind mirror and you tap the up arrow on your computer keyboard to change the attenuation. Watch it changing. Okay, all the brain waves are on there. They're a little collapsed, so I'll just probably go down to 9. Okay, and then if you wanted to auto attenuate, you could go to auto attenuate this way in the mind mirror's right click menu, or you could go back to your down arrow key. Auto attenuate is great if you have somebody, or if you yourself have your voltages in your brain changing a lot. But for the most part, especially for mind mirror practitioners, we're going to want to set an attenuation that lets us see as much of the pattern as we can unless we have this off-hanging alpha. For self-trainers, you're probably going to want to just see the whole pattern and you up arrow to get that. Because you can have this SEMG and 60 hertz noise, even signal quality issues show up in 60 hertz, 50 hertz, I always put the gamma screen on. Right click to display gamma. Or you can do my personal favorite thing instead, left click and tap the G on your computer keyboard. Other important mind mirror controls that have to do with the arrows is if you left click on the mind mirror display and then you hit the right arrow during replay, because we are in replaying a session right now, right? Then that stops the session and lets you scroll forward with the right arrow, 1 frame at a time. See this? You can look down here at the timer clock. It says 2:09. Hit the right arrow key, 2:10, 2:11, 2:12. Or you can go backwards with the left arrow key, like so. If you want to go back into play, then you just hit resume. Okay. Steve Clark put this right-click menu in that does most of what most of the keystrokes do. I'm not too crazy about it just because it's kind of a waste of time to me, because I could just hit the T for the self-training mode, the A for the auto attenuate, the G for the gamma, the S for the snap screen, and on it goes with the single keystrokes. But a lot of people do like these, especially Windows users. So I'm going to show them to you both ways. You've seen auto attenuate, and let me just show you self-training mode. Put that back and resume. And then that turns on the mind mirror pattern that you have set up. This is the awakened mind pattern with the ratios that were defined in Max Cade's book. Can you hear that sound?
Yes, we can hear that sound.
Well, that's because I'm getting these lovely rewards for meeting the pattern ratios, and now I turn my audio off and you won't hear it. So I'm gonna use the attenuation a little bit. All right, so, oh, happy day, my subject is here. My grandson Blake is gonna do the hookup with us. So Blake, you can have a seat or whatever you want to do, and I can come get you, or you can fool around and I'll come get you when it's time. Okay, yeah, we're on now. Okay, so that is turning on the self-training pattern. You could similarly turn it off. Also on the right click, record session. You know, honestly, you have to have a some kind of recording device on there, and in the user manual it shows you how to do that. I don't want to go into it now because I've never tried it and I just wouldn't do very well at it. Now, snap screen takes an actual picture. If I say I want to put it on the desktop and hit save, then this frame of the mind mirror is going to go straight to my desktop. It's not doing it right now. I think that's because the Zoom is a little overloaded. Okay, display type, that's very cool to see. These also have keystroke commands. If you want to take the mind mirror to columns, that's what we're on now. If you want to take it to lines, then you can switch over to no bars and just the outline of the pattern. Or you can switch to a combined and have them both. Some people who want help in learning to draw the patterns kind of like this, but I don't find it very useful and try to talk them out of using this simply because it adds patterns. You see how it's, if we were drawing this as practitioners, let me see if I can take it back off. If we were drawing it, we would say, and I'll stop it so you can see. Okay, we would say, okay, that's a category, that's beta, that's alpha, that's theta, and that's delta. We would show that as 4 different categories. But if you put this on, it's not going to show it as 4, it's going to show it as it's going to show it as 5. There we go. Or even 6, you see, because the way the thing draws lines. So really it's always best to look at your display in simply the columns. Also in the right click menu is spot color. I love spot color. This allows you to say, okay, I don't like this color too much. I want to change it to, say, green. I'm going to put it green. Now it's green. And you can say then, oh my gosh, I hate this color. And look, something else went black. Okay, well, lucky for us, Steve Clark put a reset spot color in there. So you don't have to get entangled in mistakes. Screen refresh rate. This is really important. And I'll show you why in just a moment. All right, so we are now at 1 second, meaning that the Ballistas could give us typically 256 pictures per second. Our video will only, computers will only register 60 of those. 60 is really more than the eye can manage. We can manage a 1/16 of the second, like that, which is pretty fast. We could manage a 1/8. That's a little bit slower. That's 8 pictures per second. And on it goes to a 1/4. It's a little bit slower. A 1/2. That's manageable for the eye. Then you can see what the pattern's doing. But really, the best rate is this 1 second pattern that we're looking at. And then the last thing on the menu is the mean rate. That's a little complicated. I'll show it to you in a minute. So all of these can also be managed by keystroke commands. Okay, so I left click on the mind mirror, I tap the G, goes away, tap it again, comes back. I hit the A for auto attenuate. It starts to attenuate on its own. Hit the A again, auto attenuate, stop. So this is just faster. I like these so much that I ask Steve to leave them in, even though you've got them in the right click. There's the line. There's the bars only. That was B. This is C. D allows you to swap between the 3 color schemes. That is the color scheme that Anna Wise liked to use. She didn't much like to use different colors for within the bands because she felt like you were just really looking at the form, the shape of the pattern. And there's a lot to be said for that. And in fact, for that reason, I created this one, which is a little bit less bright on the black background with the blue. Now, where this is useful is if you would, for instance, have a alpha that's up at 12 point, or say up at 15 hertz. Let me see if we can watch this a moment so I can show you what I'm talking about. Nope, I have 2 ordinary brainwave patterns. But if you had an alpha that was outside of the definition, of these colors, say your alpha is way up here at 12, then you're going to look at that and say, oh, that's beta, but it's really not. You can have an alpha that's up there at 15. And so in that case, then watching the solid color rather than the multicolor patterns would be helpful. Oh, that was a nice one. I want to take credit for that. Nice evolved mind flare. So I'm just backspacing to try to find it. So typically your beta is going to be up here, your alpha is going to be in the green, your theta here in the nice blue, and the delta down in the purple. Sometimes it's useful to switch those colors. Okay, and then going through the keystroke commands, which are all in the very bottom, the very back of the user manual. I'll show you the J a little bit later. That's to jump from marker to marker in a summary window. That's a very useful thing. L is display the pattern outline. We're going to go back to the C to get back to our bar pattern. The M is for mean. That's the other thing that I said I'd explain a little bit later. That's kind of complicated. What it means is complicated. Oh, I forgot about this. Oh, a shortcut to the Mind Mirror options window. Steve Clark put that in there. That would be very useful if, say, you decided in the middle of a session, well, I don't want to really train the awakened mind. I just want to switch over to the meditation pattern. And then R, what we looked at before. You saw how I had to go on that right click menu to change the refresh rate and go through each one of these separately. Well, if I left click on the mind mirror and tap the R, I start here, I tap it again, speeds up, tap it again, speeds up more. So you see why I like and probably you will also like the keystroke commands. The T, you turn on the training. I just changed that to the meditation pattern, and the T activated. It's the same way that the self-training mode would activate it. Spacebar and enter key, those put markers and summaries and sessions into your summary windows. And the other things that have to do with the Mind Mirror reference guide and the keystroke functions, which are located in the back of the user manual, like I said, those are all for summary functions. So basically, this is how you set up, this is what you find under File. This is how you set up a Mind Mirror screen, and this is how you review a session, and that's all you're going to find under File that's of use. Now, View, we've already looked at that as being the place where all the summary windows are, and we're going to look at that at much greater length after we do our hookup. We'll look at the session, the live session where we're going to record of my grandson. Configuration means literally what it says. You're going to set up your sensor configuration here. It's the very first thing you do before you start a session. For single users, if there's only one person set up with an EEG, always galvanic skin response and input 1. And similarly, you would plug that cable into port 1 on the DSU. We have dual channel sensors, so this says input 2 EEG, but it also says input 6 EEG. So you plug your EEG sensor, I'm going to stop this, into input 2. The blood volume pulse goes into input 3. If you have a manual trigger button, instead of having that say trigger event, you would just put button in there. That's the cable that allows you to, sits in your lap, and then if you want to put a marker in the session without using the enter key or the space bar, then you press that button. 5 is always, for a single user, going to be trigger event. 7 and 8 are always going to be not active. Also in configuration, the only other thing we use in configuration so far, till we start looking at neurofeedback, is going to be under options. The big thing is your COM ports. We're going to check that in a moment, but just here in the General tab, when you receive your mind mirror, the only thing you need to look at, because everything else is set for a default, is whether you're on 50 or 60 hertz. In the US, we're on 60, and so that's set. The only other thing in options that you would use, and we'll look at that when we're talking about the self-training program, is which pattern you want to train, the session mean that we're going to look at, all of these little possible tick boxes. Filter order is always going to be set for 2. You saw me adjust the audio level and the training level also. We never, in instruments, you saw that we use time series to get everything but the spectrogram, artifact amplitude, any other the gamma amplitude windows. We get that out of time series. The spectrogram has its own little identity. The brain mirror is kind of cool. I'll show you that for EEG 2 and 6 always. The brain mirror shows frequencies one at a time. Really, the only thing I ever use it for is to check for 60 hertz issues, but it has some controls so that with the up and down arrows and the side to side arrows, you can control the frequencies that you're looking at, and even all the way up to 256. And interestingly, this is a mirror, an artifact-like mirror of what's down here. So we don't ever really use the brain mirror for anything, but it is there if you wanted to isolate something that's happening in a particular frequency band. That would be how you do it, because we are grouped. You see, this is 8 to 10 hertz. This is 10 hertz to I'm guessing 12 hertz. Our frequencies are grouped, but you can look at them separately through the brain mirror. Numerical display is kind of neat. If you wanted to, say, check your stoplights and say, wait a minute, I want to get my signal quality, a digital readout of my signal quality, and not just trust this green to mean that I have good signal quality. You could get this up through numerical display. In fact, you can get up anything through numerical display. You could get the blood volume pulse reading for the pulse rate, which is clearly not hooked up in this session. I use these sometimes, and what it says is that if you have anything less than 1, then that's giving you a percentage of what you've got. If it says 33.33, then that says that your signal quality is awful. If it says 98, you probably could continue your session, but always better really to get a 1 or have your stoplights green so that you're getting, you know, you've got an excellent hookup. So that's really about, oh, well, the title, I like title. So we could say webinar and put this, and it will store in the session. So you could say, well, I'm going to do the magic mushroom meditation right now, and just type that in. And if you've forgotten to save your screen set with that title in it, then there it is for you. The only other thing under instruments are the signal check windows. If you wanted to add those, we've already got them. But if you lost them somehow, that's where you'd find them. The only way you can get to accessories is if your session is stopped. You see, it was grayed out before. Accessories is nice. Run timer gives you a better read on the timing. This assumes that your eyes are open. Then this little tiny timer clock down here. It's just a bigger display for you. Again, we have to stop it to go back in there. We don't, countdown timers are used by neurofeedback people, and they literally count backwards from the default setting of 20 minutes in this program, although that can be changed in options, all the way down to 0, and then the session stops. That's not much use to us. The run reward counter we don't use anymore because we have something better in Mind Mirror Summary. The pacer, that's kind of nice if you were doing eyes open training. Up, in breath. I think mine is set for 4. Out breath. Only eyes open training. The rest of these things we're going to show you in an upcoming seminar. We've got some new neurofeedback things that are nice for us. Multimedia feedback. That would be if you want to change your music from what's in there as a default. The awakened mind music for the awakened mind pattern. The meditation music for the meditation pattern. I've added a couple in here that I really like. The bubble for the gong sound, that is the evolved mind audio reward. I never use Windows and I never use help. So really, we're only using file view to look at the summary windows after the session, configuration to set up what instruments you're going to be running, and then accessories for these other little oddball things that you might want in there. That is the summation of it, how to use the menus, how to set up the screen sets, and how to control the window through the attenuation, that being the up arrows and the down arrows. And then once you're in replay, how to move forward 1 frame at a time, or backward with the back arrow 1 frame at a time. That's as complex as it gets. So let me just ask you if you have questions about anything I've shown you, or if you want me to show you something again before we start working on the hookup.
In file, you would use record new session when you're recording new sessions. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And once we do that hookup, I'll show you that little procedure. Essentially, all it is that you're pressing record, adding a client, and then the program starts. And when you are done with the session, you press stop, write in the name of the session that you want, and then it stores here under Open Existing Session.
Judith, I was wondering if people would like maybe to check COM ports, because this is, like in my case, most typical Bluetooth glitch that I have to fix.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
we'll
like...
do that. Yeah, we'll do that when we hook up Blake, as a matter of, you know, as part of the hookup thing, as part of the start a session thing. I just wanted to give you this background first, so that when we hook up Blake and then start the session, you'll know what's where, and it'll have some familiarity. We'll definitely look at the COM ports.
And the stoplights are showing the connection of the electrodes and the different sensors.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and this is something really neat that Ballistis has given us. On other systems, you do the hookup. If the electrode comes off, well, maybe the brain waves are going to go haywire, but maybe you don't know why. With this system, what we've got is continuous monitoring of the signal quality. If an electrode falls off, you're going to see a red light instantaneously. If somebody walks in the room with, God forbid, a Mac computer, which will knock us offline in a second, knock Windows offline, then you're going to see 60 hertz go red. Or if you start wiggling your eyebrows, the SCMG artifact is going to go red. And all of that, all intended to alert you that you cannot trust the brain waves that you're seeing in the mind mirror display.
The Mac messes up the Bluetooth connection? Is that what happens?
Man, I have seen a horror story. We went to a neurofeedback training with Steve Clark in Washington, D.C., and we had 3 Macs and 3 Windows. And boy, those Macs knocked us offline continuously. We were constantly having to go to our COM ports. But then the Macs left the room, and none of the Windows bothered each other. I've had 2 computers, 3 computers, 3 DSUs hooked up, and if they're all Windows, they're fine. But there's something about Mac and Windows that cause them to get into a Bluetooth fight.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, and just to say about cell phones, I mean, I've also seen a cell phone be sitting right next to the DSU and have no problem whatsoever. And then other times I've seen it within a foot of the DSU and have a problem. So something goes on between mains electricity coming out of the wall and Bluetooth or wireless electricity. These things, sometimes they're, oh, I love you, and then other times they're like, I'm going to kill you. So it's best to keep your cell phone at least 3 to 6 feet away from you. Be sitting at least 6 feet away from a router. And if you can keep other laptop computers. In fact, Deborah and I were online yesterday, and we saw that her wireless mouse and what else was it, Deborah? Something.
Keyboard.
Keyboard. Wireless keyboard, yeah, that had an effect. So deactivate all the wireless stuff you can if you're using Bluetooth. Yeah, any other questions about that before we hook up Blake?
Have you ever used the binaural beats in listening to the entrainment?
I have, yeah. And you know, they're fine and dandy, and some of them work really well. Some kind of scatter your brain waves. Let me put this in play and I'll show you what I mean by that.
Which ones?
So if you want to do mind mirror training, what you're really after is coherence between the individual frequency bands within the category and coherence among the categories with each other. What you're mainly after is unity, inner unity, so that the information can flow down from beta to delta and back up. Everybody's talking to each other and everybody's happy with each other. But I have seen, because I've been hooked up to test some of these things out, I have seen them cause disunity between the frequency bands and between the categories. So the best way, if you're going to use binaural beats to make sure that they're doing you justice, is to make sure that they're not splitting, splitting this frequency band off to the left and this one off to the right. But yeah, they can be very useful for it to get you down into an alpha theta state. But honestly, it's cheap, it's easy, it's free. Just to use the idea behind the mind mirror and the structures that Max Cade found and Anna Wise continued with and that we're teaching now. And that is, you just go down and in. You pull your attention away from the external environment, and that's how you master your mind, is to withdraw from the outside environment, center your awareness inside yourself, activate your sensory awareness, and feel yourself going deeper and deeper down inside. And once you do that and you attain a meditation state, you get a feeling for what that's like to be in that open flow of consciousness, in that inwardly united state of awareness. And that's the way you're going to bring it out, open your eyes and bring it out to the world. And that's where binaural beats are going to fail you, is that the only way you get to a somewhat altered state with binaural beats is with your eyes closed while you got the headphones on. Although I suppose these days everybody wears earbuds. I suppose you could walk down the street and be listening to binaural beats, but I'd worry about crossing the street safely.
I think it's a great point. I think it's a great point. I think it's true of anything that you're using from the outside to manifest that state.
Yeah.
It's really your own ability to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, Judith, I think we may give like another whole meeting, to binaural beats or to all other, techniques that can help us to enhance the experience.
Yes, we are actually. We're going to have a complementary modalities webinar.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring all of these different concepts in, some of which can be extremely useful.
Because I had experience with lights that can be kind of programmed to trigger more theta or even to trigger gamma, and that was quite interesting what I observed when we were doing that.
Yeah, you can get way high.
Okay, maybe we should move on to hookup and try call your grandson and see how it
All right, sounds good. All right, so let me introduce my grandson, Blake Davis.
Hi, Blake.
Hello, Blake.
Our subject, our demo subject for today. And first I just want to start from scratch and say, well, okay, so here are the 5 EEG electrodes. And the first thing we're going to do is snap the various electrodes into the sensor heads. The white one I'm going to use, that's the ground wire, so I'm going to use this pre-gel disposable electrode because that allows us to put it somewhere beside the forehead or more easily on the forehead. And then these are the flat blue disc electrodes into each of the others.
We can't see your hands, Judith.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of hard to...
Yeah, I understand the idea.
Okay. All right, that's good. Okay, so now we've got the electrodes in each one, and now we're just going to separate the wires. I was going to do this on my own head, but then I finally realized that it would be suicidal trying to have the Skype headset on and the wires at the same side. So what we want, as mentioned earlier, are the striped electrodes to be on the right brain. So here are the striped guys. In my case, you have blue stripes. My older sensor set here has the white stripes, so they're going to go on the right brain. And then the other electrodes, I typically put the white one on the left side, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter where it ends up. And then once you get those separated, all we're going to do is slip this sensor box in the back of Blake's shirt, and then drop these wires over each side. So what I do is just not have to squeeze this gel out every single time. I just put a nice blob on something so I can go back to it. Oops. Well, that doesn't usually happen. After much understanding, which I'm sure Max Cade had to begin with, much research, what I basically learned is that for the electrodes in the back on the occipitals, these guys are just on the exact same plane as the eyes, because what we're really hooking up to is the visual cortex. It's not very big, actually. Even though the occipital lobes are probably right about here, and you neurofeedback people are going to know this better than I am, the visual cortex is smaller. It's more like this size right here. In fact, let's spin you all the way around. Thank you. The reference, so that's one reference, directly behind the eyes and on a plane with the eyes. And you're going to find that the temporals are also on the same plane. So that's a really nice guide. And how you find, once you're in the back of your head, is you feel around, and you can do that right now for the occipital bump. It's right here on Blake. If you make a line from the occipital bump, then what you're going to feel is the occipital ridge. It extends out on both sides. If you follow it on down here, then you have the base of the skull. And you don't want to be down there, because then you'd be measuring the brain waves of your neck. Instead, you want to find that bump. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd the bump? There it is. And then that's going to tell you where the occipital ridge is. Can you feel it on yourselves? Now, on many people, oddly, some people don't have an occipital bump, and they're really tough to hook up. You have to work on the whole idea of the plane, because you don't have any reference at all. And those same, oh, there's your bump. It disappeared when your head was down. Okay, that's really interesting. I never realized that before. Turn your head down again. Goodbye, bump. Okay, head straight up. Hello, bump. Okay, and so some people will also have a really rounded head, but others, from what I've seen so far, Celtic people, Polish people, they will not only have an occipital ridge, but will have another ridge up here. You can feel on your head and see if you have that actually third, but we're going to call this the first, the occipital, and then this one right here. If you feel a third ridge, you want to be in between the occipital and the third ridge, because I've checked this out, and there is more theta here than there is here. So the placement is important, but essentially it's pretty easy. You're basically going around, finding the bump. Once you find the bump, there it is, you're going up about an inch and about this far apart, an inch and a half to 2 inches apart, and that's right where we want to be on the visual cortex. Okay, that makes sense? Everybody feeling your bumps and your ridges? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to swing Blake around just a little bit, and I'll work on this side first. Let's see. Let me see if I can angle the camera more to my own position. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I've showed you where that is. I use this little dental tool, but in actuality, you don't. You could just use your finger, especially for a hair as short as Blake's is. I'm just going to take the gel, rub the gel right where I know this thing needs to go. When I find his bump again, thank you. That's going to be right about here. And then again for the other placement, right about here. And then take a paper towel or a tissue and wipe that away. Now, if I want to be really smart, once that is wiped away, I'll take a little bit of paste. Now, your paste is in tubes, so it's not quite as easy as sticking your finger in there. I just do this. I find where that paste was, rub the paste there, clean the gel off the other side, run a little bit of paste there. And I'll show you the benefit of doing it this way and where the dental tool does actually, or the finger, if you can turn you back around and bend your head back up. That's great. So now I have this line that I can create on each side. You can see that clean line of scalp, and that's really made possible because I put that paste on there. I could actually even put a little bit more paste on there so you can see it better. There. Can everybody see that? Now, I don't have any hair in the way here. So I know that that little electrode is going to land real well. But I could also do the same thing with this finger. And since some of you are going to be doing self hookups, you might find that better. I talk in the user manual about using 2 mirrors, one mirror to hold in your hand and the other so that you can look at the back of your head. But what I've actually found lately is that you can just do a self hookup every bit as well. And the self hookup is about just feeling the clean line of scalp. It's okay. So now we take the red electrode that's not striped, right? This guy right here, and just put the paste on it. It doesn't have to be, it only really has to cover the electrode, like so. That's in the center, the dark coated electrode. But honestly, I follow what Anna Wise said and goop the heck out of it because, I'm sorry, that's not the red one. I'm on the occipitals. We want the black because it sticks better. It's kind of like glue. All right, so the black electrode here on the left occipital. And then I just hold the front of his head and press that electrode into place. And then we're going to get the black striped one for the other side. Normally I start the temporals first, but I wanted to show you the occipital placement. Okay, see those 2 guys in place? And there's so much paste on there, there's no way that thing's coming off, right? Okay, now Blake, if we can spin you this direction all the way around here. And we're going to do now, interestingly, I asked Peter at one point for a picture because we had these little hole punched headbands that the old mind mirror electrodes would go in, and so with the new mind mirror, this one, it was a little less clear at first exactly where to put these occipitals and temporals. So Peter sent me a picture, and in fact, they were hooking up these temporals, because the temporal lobe is like big. They were hooking up here. Let me turn you a little bit more this way, darling. Their occipital was going, their temporal was going back here. Anna taught us, for reasons that I don't know, to put the temporals above and behind the ear, right about here, anywhere in this area right here. And so I'm really following Anna's way, not because it was Anna's way, but because I recently learned from Steve Clark, originally Anna's way, now because Steve Clark has told us that the farther apart the electrodes are, the better the signal. So that is a good reason right there. All right, so we clean this thing off. Again, put a little bit of paste in there. Separate the hair with the fingers or some tool. And this is going to be the red striped for the right side and for the temporal location. And then if I can spin you one more time, we're just going to do the exact same thing. There we go. Clean the area. Wipe away the gel. Put a little bit of paste. Prepare the landing area, I think, is the way that the neurofeedback people talk about it. Okay, and then the red electrode already gelled, pasted, and then down she goes. Now we can put the ground wire, which is always going to be white, on the forehead and the traditional mind mirror placement, or we can put it anywhere on the head, neck, and shoulders. Now I have an earlier version of the sensor electrodes that you would have to put like right here. But you can also put it on the back of the neck or the chest. When I'm working on a self-training, then I almost always use the chest because I don't have any hair there. If you're a guy, then you might want to go just right back here. Unless you want to put it on the forehead, and you've got longer wires now with which to do that. Now here's where the pre-gelled electrodes work in real well for us, because with this large head, you just take the slip of paper off the back and sit it in place. Okay, so that's the hookup, and now I'm going to take a headband and ask Blake to hold this down in the front. That's it. That's it. And then you can see that these are very much on a plane. They fit real well under the headband. You're one of the few people, Blake, who looks good in a headband. Right. Okay, I'll make sure that guy's where he's supposed to be. Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna, if you're a self-trainer, you do not have this extender cable because you don't, it wasn't thought that you needed one. It would have just increased the cost of your kit. if you're a practitioner, you have this extender cable, and all you do is match the two sides together, click them together, and then if you'll turn around a little bit, that way, front way. Then we're going to plug in the extender cable, when I decide how to unwire myself, into port 2 of the DSU. So that's how we've got the sensors configured. And then we're going to go ahead and put 2 more instruments on Blake. This will be the GSR. Again, the self-trainers won't have this, the practitioners will. The GSR goes on the forefinger and the middle finger, or it can go on the middle finger and the ring finger, either way. What is useful is to sometimes just put the tape on the fingers and then attach the electrode, and it goes on the first part, the end of the finger, but not on the joint. So it's this first segment, this first joint here. And then you just take the soft and fuzzy side and wrap the other side around. And do the same with the other one. You want it to be tight, not so tight that it shuts off your blood flow, but tight enough that it's not going to just slip off the end. Now, about 20% of people will not be able to use the GSR for dry hands, reason of dry hands. But most other people will, and it's usually women with dry hands, oddly enough. It's better to put it on yourself because you have better leverage. Is this loose? Nope, that's good. All right, so we can snap in the electrodes. And then you can put this one on. This is the blood volume pulse meter. That's just these 2 clips. It doesn't matter which side of the finger this clip goes on, but we want it to go on the little finger. So we're going to just put it right here. And again, we want it to be on the first joint. For the BVP meter, the only thing we need to be careful of is that we're not in bright light, because if we are, then it's going to give you light artifact. And in fact, we're not in bright light here. So the BVP goes into channel input port 3. The GSR goes into port 1. And then we just turn on the DSU, press it on like that. How about a little meditation? You feel like doing a little short meditation? Whatever we want. Okay, so you can't see him now, but he's here and he's cute and he's willing. Now you can see him. Okay, great. All right, so I think we're ready for a screen share at this point. All right.
We can see.
All right, so now you asked me about the COM ports. So
yeah.
If you're using the dongle that's plugged into the USB port of your computer, then you're going to be able to go to this down arrow. See where my cursor is? This down arrow at the bottom in the system tray. And there's going to be a Bluetooth icon there. I've already installed this one, so I just go to Open Settings and COM ports. Sooner or later it's going to come up. Okay, this is my DSU number 45, and it says outgoing. If you have one DSU installed, I have 2 installed here, you're going to look for the outgoing port, and that's the one that's going to work for you. So then you say, okay, you go to configuration and options and COM ports. And sure enough, mine's already set on 14. I tell it okay. So I'm ready to record the session, start the session. We're going to see if my hookups worked. If they didn't, we're going to adjust them. I'm going to actually add Blake as a client. You know what? I can't actually do this and keep the names of the guilty out, so I'll just put Blake's session under test user. It's simple enough to add a client. All right, looks like I've got all green lights, so the hookup's good. I'm going to left click, hit the G for get the gamma, and then the up arrow to change the attenuation to probably 10. We'll watch Blake on. Have you got your eyes open? He's got some open-eyed alpha. He's a smart guy. All right, his GSR may not be as tight as it needs to be. See how that Lesh state 1 or minus actually. Looks like the BVP meter's working great. I'll take a left arrow and then, sorry, a left click and then a right arrow so I can slow down the data line. But I'm gonna adjust his GSR so we can get a nice reading on him. If the Lesh state says a minus, then that just means the GSR is not hooked up right, and you just have to tighten it a little bit. If we want to test this thing, we can take the sensor head off of it, off of the pin, see, and just hold the pin against his fingers, and that's what we're going to do. That's how you just test and make sure a GSR is going to register for you. Registers on the balled pins, then it's definitely working. So if you will, honey, just hold your fingers down. These two fingers, like so. This is what you're wanting to do. Well, let's see if it's working on me, then we'll know. Yeah, okay, so I'm at a Lesh state 5.1. And let's see if we can get it to work for you that way. Just hold your... Okay. All right, so he's got a really nice Lesh score that matches his little awakened mind, his big awakened mind pattern. And so why don't we just do a little short meditation, so for the purpose of being able to look at his summary windows, okay? So darling, if you would just close your eyes and begin to imagine yourself as a musical instrument. You could be a real instrument or a fantasy instrument. Notice whether you have strings or a bow, or just how you make sound. Notice what you're made of, what material, what color you are. And how you are held. What kind of music do you play? Do you play alone? With an ensemble? Or a group? Spend a few moments now playing your best music. Notice what it feels like to play your best music. And then notice what, if anything, gets in the way of your playing your best music. What do you need in order to play your best music? And take a few moments now to notice your qualities and characteristics as this musical instrument. Find 2 or 3 words that represent your nature as this musical instrument. And when you're ready, send those qualities and characteristics up to your conscious mind so you can remember them, and in time project them into your life. And when you're ready, very gently return to this outside space. All right, so we're going to stop the session down here. We're going to call it Blake's Instrument. Save it. Turn off the DSU. Take out the sensors. And then unhook Blake's fingers at least. And I expect that you would like to sit here and listen to what it is that we're going to say about your session, right? Lovely brainwaves, as always. Oh, now I'm getting myself all tangled in all the wires. Okay. All right, so you had that screen share then, and let me show you how, at least one of the ways to look at this session. The first thing we want to do is go to File and Open Existing Session and load the session. It's under Test User, I think. Yep, Blake's Instrument. I could single click and then load session, or I can just double click. Do I want to load the saved screen set? No, I do not, because I have a screen set here already. If you have a blank screen and you're going straight in to open a session, then yeah, you could load the screen set with the session. But I'm going to say no for right now. Now, the simplest thing to do is just to hit play and play the session. But that's a little, well, and so we could take a quick look right now and say, okay, so with eyes open, Blake is showing a bit better than the pattern of ordinary consciousness, because he's got some alpha flaring out here, even with his eyes open. And even on the hot seat, you know, anytime you're a demonstration subject, there tends to be some autonomic nervous system activity, but he's even got some nice eyes open alpha. He's got a rounded beta here. He's got some flares of beta at 30, 24, 19, but not so much. And the displayed beta anxiety would look like this, right? So he's not showing that. But if we go on down into the session, we see that beta has quieted down a whole lot. And he's actually, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because he's got his 15 bar is joining in with his alpha. Now this is the perfect situation for what I was telling you about earlier, where sometimes you could change the color scheme. And now you're looking at this category all as one, you see. And not thinking, wait, what's that beta doing? Later on, you're going to see some of his high beta is joining in. Nice pattern there. I'm going to scroll back. You see how this is all forming one category with the 15, the 12, the 10, and the 9? That's a good thing because that means that his beta is joining his alpha. And in fact, in some of his patterns, I saw that he was moving into, there it is, more of an evolved mind pattern where you've got this theta joining in with the alpha in this sort of diamond shape. So that's a more of a higher consciousness pattern there. So certainly we could go through this whole session and look at it frame by frame. And if I were a new user, I'd certainly want to do that. But if you don't want to do it that way, then you can go to the summary windows. First, I did see that his blood volume pulse was railing a little bit during the session. We can go to View and Summary and look at blood volume pulse and pulse rate. So it is railing, and maybe that little finger was moving some of the time, and data is dropping out some of the time. But when we started the meditation, just about here, then the movement obviously stopped. And so we could add an event marker and say, well, the only really part of this session that we can depend on, and even more activity toward the back, we can say, you know, right in here. So let's marker that off and say that might be a good part of the session to take a look at. We can look at his GSR again, View and Summary, GSR. We're looking at this window here. You can see the name of it, GSRC skin conductance. So we get that one up. I don't know what the GSR is doing there. It looks like we should be seeing more variation in this Lesh scale. I don't know why we're not. I do see why. Because the scale, for some reason, I guess because of these big spikes here, has selected an active scale of 0 to 35. So we're going to change the scale. Display options to display trend line. And we just want to look at, I don't know, I think I'd want to look at the 0 to... I think 500. I'm not 100% sure about that. We'll check it. Okay, so this makes more sense. 60 on the GSR scale is 6 on the Lesh scale. So here you can see that oddly enough, as maybe, well, there's nothing odd in any of this because systems can operate independently of one another. His heart rate, probably a low of 70, we'll just say 60 just in case, 60 to 80. So you see how I did that? I went into display options with that right click on the window to change the scale. All right, so that's too high. I'm going to go back on the right click to display options and change it to 90. See how that does, okay? There's this great little thing, you know, you're not going to be able to remember all these different things, but right now, because we're going to go over them incrementally in future webinars, but we can look at this inside the markered, look at the peaks, look at the drops, and make an average for ourselves. You can hit the Shift key and then the left click to get this groovy little line there and say, okay, 85, that's kind of a fast heart rate. And this is more GSR activity we expect to see. So he's got some body activity here that is not reflected so much in his brain waves. And I'll show you why I say that. So if we look at his GSR window to get the timings, we say the meditation according to the blood volume pulse, when these readings started to calm down, probably from, I'm clicking on that marker, that's giving us a second timer clock down at here at 3:37, okay? The second marker, the timer clock says 7:21. So one groovy thing that we can do with the mind mirror is hit the J for the jump key, and now it's taken us to the first marker right there. I can hit the J again. It's going to take us to the second marker. Supposed to take us to the second. There it is. Huh. I hate it when it doesn't obey me. Oh yeah, I'm not looking at the right thing. Look at this timer clock here is where I clicked here. Okay, 3:37. If I put this and resume and I tap the J, it's taking me back to the beginning of the session, says the first timer clock. Tap the J again, it's taken me to the first marker. Tap the J again, it's taken me to the second marker. So what you can do is back up to see what the patterns look like during the meditation. Or, much more usefully, you can go into this markered section here, left click on it, and then go to Mind Mirror Segment Statistics. This is going to give us an average brainwave pattern for that section in which we know he was meditating. And we'll ask him in a minute what he experienced in the meditation. Oh, he said, "Huh." All right, so yeah, he got some terrific scores. If we hit accumulate statistics, the Mind Mirror summary brings up 3 different things. One is the average brainwave pattern. One is Oksana, the creative genius behind, well, we're looking at the awakened mind pattern. This summary plot, which shows us where his best awakened mind patterns were. Even though we didn't turn on the self-training program, we still got this information because the Mind Mirror summary is computing it. So we can look at this and see that he's got almost solid dots. It was coming in and out of the patterns at times, but right about where we would expect to see that. And then we go to his Mind Mirror summary. With accumulate statistics, we see that he got 86% rewards for the awakened mind at training level 5, which is where most meditators are training. That's a really great score. The brain needs 70% rewards to learn. So Blake could train with the scores like these. He could train on training level 4, and not many meditators are training on training level 4. So that's what great scores these are. Maybe I'm going to switch this over to Blake and ask you to say what was your experience during the meditation. Do you want to share that? Well, you have to speak through here. So I have to give you this. Okay, so what instrument were you?
I chose the voice.
You chose the voice. Of course, he's a singer. And what made you sing your best music?
I don't know if anything made me, just the right state of mind.
And what did that feel like?
Bliss.
Bliss. Yeah, and we see some of this bliss rounding can you hear me through there? If I speak loudly, can you hear me, Oksana?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
And so
Yep.
there's his bliss, the rounding out at the top of that pattern, and also that delta band is shorter than that 1.5 delta band. Okay. And what were your qualities and characteristics?
Versatile, free, and happy.
That's pretty good.
That's wonderful.
Anything else you want to share about that session that might be interesting or useful for people to hear?
I was having some anxiety before this session, and I feel completely relaxed.
I didn't pay him to say that.
Yes, Blake is a perfect model. You
That's
are.
right.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys. That was enlightening.
What would you say?
I said thank you guys. That was enlightening.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so if I might pull Blake a little closer, we want to talk about how to take the electrodes off. I really am a tender vittle and find that it's compassionate to my body to take off a pre-gel disposable electrode with either this sterilium that's really good for cleaning the hair afterwards. You can get it up on Amazon, Sterilium. The back of the user manual talks about it and where you can get it. Just a little squirt will let me take the, that's it, run this up under the top of the,
Whereas, of course, I prefer to just take it off.
well, you might jerk it off. You will jerk it off, and most people will, and it's not a problem for them. I'm not doing a very good job here, darling. I'm sorry. But it can be kind of uncomfortable. So if you use the sterilium, it melts the gel in here, or alcohol actually works a little bit better. And then off comes the headband. And then off come the electrodes. You want to grasp them by the sensor head. Make sure not to pull the wires out because that would be not covered under your warranty. So you grab the sensor head, just pull it off. Okay. Move your box. Set your sensors. And then I would say, because I want to remind myself to say this, I'll say it now. If you've got your sensors all nice and gelled up and you know you're going to train tomorrow, you do not have to remove the gel. You can, people have used the sensors, the electrodes up to 7 times before the electrodes have not, before the salt in the, on the electrode has destroyed the coating. So up to 7 times, I'm very conservative. I would really stop after 3 and change the electrodes. But you don't have to clean them every time. But you'll notice that this electrode's really clean, you see. So I haven't got any paste on the metal. Now, if you've managed to get paste all over the place, it's better to take the electrodes off and clean that metal because it will corrode. But otherwise, you can use it for quite some time, and that saves you on electrodes, which cost about $1.15 a piece. So if you can stretch out your use of the electrodes, all the better. And then, Blaker, do you mind if I clean this off or not? Okay, well, he's going to do it for himself, but if you don't want to wash your hair, then you can just squirt the sterilium on, or alcohol, and rub it right off the spot and then go on about your day. And I expect, Blake, that's exactly what you want to do. You're welcome to stay here with us as we close this thing out. But I would just say that anybody who wants to give Blake a thank you.
Thank you, Blake. As I said, you have great sensitive mind. You're a great model.
Blake, what I would say with that is you don't need to be working on this anymore. You need to go around with your eyes open and just do it in the big wide world. You've got all of it already.
And look, this is coming from Peter Staples, who was in this work at the very beginning. So you can say that the voice of authority has just said so. Thank you, Peter. So what we want to do now is what? Do I want to stop sharing screens, or do you want to look at anything else on this?
Judith, we are almost, 2 hours online, so I think we should ask people if they have questions and maybe round up for this session.
Sounds good.
So everyone is on.
I've got one query on the lesh.
Uh-huh.
The origin of the lesh, from the subjective descriptions of states of relaxation, kind of supposes you start at 0, and then as you relax, go into the other states. But on that, it seemed to be in the section of the session we were looking at, the GSR was pretty level, and yet it seemed to be showing leshes other than much away from 0, which made me think what it's showing is something a little bit different.
It's based, what he did was calibrate it exactly on the ESR, and so it's going to match those basal readings. So the GSR window that you saw up there at the top left, that is going to be the 25 on the ESR, the drop from 25 to 0. But when you press that basal button, then you go into the 0 to 6 scale, which is what we saw. So it should be real time, if somebody gets a 0, then this person's going to be itchy, distractible, or if they get to a 3, they're going to be just before entering meditation. A 4, entering meditation. A 5 is probably going to be an awakened mind pattern, and then a 6 will be more in the evolved mind pattern. But we saw Blake on a 3.3, 4, something like that. So that even though he was able to move his mind into a lovely awakened mind pattern, we are seeing that he's got some body tension, and of course he's sitting in a not necessarily comfortable chair, and that'll affect that. But yeah, it should be running the same exact way as the ESR, and I've tested them side by side, and they're absolutely dead on.
I'll have a chat with you separately, I think, because it's a bit technical, and I think a bit of a distraction on this.
And I'm not sure I'm going to be up to the technical, but I am always happy to talk to you, Peter. Hey, I have a wonderful announcement to make. Peter has just found and sent 2 cassette tapes of Max Cade guiding meditations on the ancient Scottish Isle of Iona, and I have those over with the audio converting company right now, and we're going to upload all 9 of those meditations up to the website pretty soon. So you're going to hear Max Cade's voice for the first time. Me too. Thank you, Peter.
It's a pleasure.
It's a real thrill. Thank you all for listening. I know we've been on for a couple of hours. Hopefully it was worth every minute of it. And if you have questions, email me. Of course, everything's in the user manual, but I'm happy to talk with you in any format, and enjoy the community. Including,
brilliant. Well, thanks
my dear one.
Nice to meet you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much.
See you next time. Thank you, Oksana, for the new webinar.
Yes, 2 more webinars in February coming, so check our new website, IM Events on ws. And then I plan the next new users on 12th of March if you are interested. You can also see the next topic on our website. There is the whole program for 2016 for new users. Okay, thank you. And good luck.
Marvelous.
With your mind
Thank you, Oksana. Thank you, Judith.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye for now.